Okay, you all good? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast. You're listening to the B2C Lead Gen Podcast. My name is Daniel Hopewell here with Simon Delaney, and this is episode 101, How Will AI Impact Lead Generation? So we've talked about AI previously in the pod, but today we're going to dedicate a whole show to it. We're going to make some predictions and also look at what lead buyers and lead sellers can do to future-proof themselves and make the most of the opportunities AI will inevitably bring. Simon, let's start a little bit with our sort of rough history in AI, because we've sort of delved into this in the past, but I think it's relevant, so we'll just start there.
Okay, so we actually explored AI or machine learning as it at the time. We were calling it because AI was being used as a buzzword, which is really strange now, right? Because it's the same sort of thing. So I think back in like 2016, 2017, Tom, the CTO, and I sat down and were like, there's some huge use for machine learning in what we're doing, because there's potentially like quite a lot of data and it's all very standardized and we can do stuff with it. And we started an exercise of in fact, no, it was Malcolm, one of the developers.
Yeah.
That's who sorry, it was Malcolm and I sat down and started talking about the use of machine learning in it, and he was really interested in wanting to get into it. So we actually built a connection with Sheffield University that had a machine learning artificial intelligence course. We met with the professor there, two different professors, one of which has gone to work at Amazon as one of the heads of AI there, and the other guy is now a professor in Australia, I think, of artificial intelligence at another university. We enrolled some PhD students that were all doing machine learning and artificial intelligence to come and work with us. All three of them wrote their dissertations on what we learned from applying machine learning within the mechanism of consumer data, specifically from leads generated. And then we hired two data scientists and machine learning specialists and got to work in applying the user interface and obviously all the algorithms and the processing and everything to actually administer everything we'd learned from all these professors, the PhD students, absolutely I mean, it's crazy looking back. Huge amounts of different resources, everything went into it. And basically the model we built was when a lead comes into Databall, analyzing all the other data that existed in relation to that particular campaign or offer or whatever it was, we could make a reasonable prediction about what the next outcome would be. Not only that, if we knew all the results of the other outcomes, we knew who to deliver a lead to, which agent it needs to go to, what sort of email to send them, whether it's an SMS or an email, the best time to call them, which agent should call them based on the probability that they're going to convert. So we built this huge machine around it all that used some of the sort of similar technology which is being used in AI now. And one of your friends that Tom, came to work on something. So in order, from a marketing perspective, we built out a Twitter bot that did like LLM AI and started looking at everyone's tweets and then would make tweets up based on the tweets that everyone had ever written. I put that out on LinkedIn a couple of months ago. So that was our experience from it. And the thing is, it was really early, right? We're talking 6-7 years ago that we did this. And at the time, we couldn't get anyone interested in it. It was really difficult. It was just like, I don't know, it was just far too early. I think looking back, we built it and then sat down with just like a room full of incredibly talented, clever people. And it was classic case of, I'm sure if we build it, they will come, and no one did. But what's great is we're sat on all this tech now, and now it's becoming like, oh, wouldn't it be good if we could use whatever? And it was like, well, we've built it 7 years ago, but here we go. That's our experience with it.
I remember we built it, no one came. Field of no dreams, as it worked out to be. Yeah, I think you said like it's almost like if we left that in the back pocket and then rolled it out a few months ago, it would be right at the point I want to be interested. It was just bad timing.
Yeah.
But like we say, it was too early almost, but now is almost the perfect time in the sense that AI is like the discussion for everyone in every single field. So what we're going to do today is kind of look at, that kind of stuff, lead scoring, lead enrichment, people are sort of aware of, but maybe we can look a little bit more at making some predictions about what the next steps are. So lead generation from the perspective of both the buyer and the seller, what can we expect to happen? What kind of developments do you think are going to impact them?
So I think the lead generators will jump on this quicker than the buyers probably. Just because if they spot an opportunity to generate revenue from it, and because they're smaller and nimble, more agile companies generally, they can just spin something up. So there's a few people who are already doing this, which is building like AI bots. So you can train, say, ChatGPT on your specific industry, on what you want it to know. So people will have it as a chatbot on their website, and they feed all the information from their website into it, or anything else from the company, and then ChatGPT starts responding from all the information that you've given it. So you can actually replace a form with it. So let's imagine after 6 p.m. when you're no longer generating leads, or there's no one there to answer any questions, or someone has other questions, or it could be in hours, you can have a bot trained on life insurance that will answer everything about the lead generation that you're running, in addition to collecting the data of the individual that you can then API in. So it's a great mechanism to do that, right? Because suddenly all lead generators have been like relying on a single page to get all the information across, and there'll be people that have questions within that. And suddenly you now have the ability to explore all the information you can ever get about a particular vertical, dump it all into ChatGPT, train your bot on all that information, and it just answer every consumer that hits it back with that information and collect the lead. So I think that's like one way that's sort of already started happening. People are now doing it. Ben that we work with he's got a B2B site. He now has ChatGPT trained on his own site. Something we could do. You can see, you could put manuals for software and stuff in it. So I see that happening very quickly. You could definitely see more brands going into what we were just talking about, like you mentioned, with the lead scoring and things. As machine learning and AI gets a bit more ubiquitous, they'll understand, okay, we could probably figure out how much these leads are worth, how likely they are to respond, route them in different ways. And less from a lead scoring model, it's more of a, at that moment in time, based on all the information that we know, what is the best next outcome with this particular lead. Then there's so I see those like both happening quite quickly. Larger brands, I mean, they'll just start doing plugins to AI, right? And I think this is where it starts getting potentially interesting, is as consumer use grows of AI, is whether that starts impacting people on a destination for a search. Because suddenly you're no longer using potentially Google, you're using Google's version of AI. And AI just becomes everybody's personal assistant. So suddenly, if you wanted life insurance and you're not going to a direct search, you'd put, how do I get the best life insurance quote?
Yeah.
And once, say, ChatGPT, which is already will come soon, and Bard's already connected to the internet. What is it going to return? So obviously they're all commercial companies, so they're still going to run ads almost certainly, right? So it's about where those ad placement come. And then is it going to return different companies that you speak to? And so is the aim that you're going to try and get in that response, or is it going to go, here's a list of companies, or this is what you should do, or is it someone's plugin within it? What I'm almost certain about is it's going to become a lot harder to generate leads if people don't think you're providing value to them. So if you're a lead generator, for example, just doing life insurance for like one or two companies, not, you're doing advertising arbitrage without really adding a massive amount of value, I can just see that like getting removed like that. I think because running ads on that basis would be really expensive, because suddenly you'll be competing against the brands that are 100% going to want to be right up there on those searches.
So from the perspective of the lead generator, let's start there. Let's imagine a future, which probably isn't far away, where as a lead generator, I can say, right, I want to work in life insurance. And you can train ChatGPT or whatever to learn everything it possibly can faster than any human could. And you can plug into the necessary artwork or whatever software it is, say, create me a landing page, write me the messaging. You can get it to run the Facebook ads or whatever ads, and I'm sure that'll eventually come and do the optimal bidding and all that sort of stuff. You can even get it in the future to manage something like data bowl and literally make sure everything's working. So if you get as a generator, you can get all this working, which on the one hand is great because it's all stuff that you spend time doing. But on the other side, it's probably a pretty scary thought, because suddenly that lead generator is thinking, well, actually, other than putting these commands in, what am I actually doing here? What's my value? It gets to that point quite quickly. Like AI does no sensors. So for the lead generator looking forwards to that future, what can they do to make themselves more valuable, and to not be scared of that and to actually see as opportunity?
Yeah, so this is something I've been thinking about a lot. And it's tough, right? Because I think that comparison sites will suffer in the future. Because imagine I can now get the comparison just off AI. Like, because all the brands that a comparison site is running the searches off are now just returning responses on a plugin into AI. So let's say like booking.com, they're not a typical lead generation company, but what they do is they're working with a bunch of hotels. You put in your search where you want a hotel. You can see how they could be quite easily removed, because suddenly if all these companies, I don't know, every Hilton hotel and every Holiday Inn and every whatever, it's now plugged straight in. I can just get the answer. I can book things. So will the same happen to comparison sites? And so the reason I'm saying that is that, does that mean in the future that just doing a comparison isn't enough anymore, because AI is now going to do the comparison? So I think there could be two futures in this. So one is, number one, you want to be a destination for a search. So we're talking about PPC like here, right? Because at the moment, from everything we've just said, there's still Facebook, TikTok affiliates that you can advertise on. It's just that, is there going to be more of a future where people will see ads and then go back to their personal assistant, i.e. AI, to make a decision anyway, because they're not going to be fooled as much by like direct response marketing anymore. So I see two futures. So one is you want to be a destination, as in you want to be the search, because you want people to directly search your brand. Like they're going to search moneysupermarket.com. And so your advertising spend is going to be spent on just trying to drive home your search as a destination, so that they're not asking AI to get the responses, because AI is going to replace you. And then the future beyond that, and I'm not putting any timeline on this, by the way, so I could be thinking, look what happened when we built machine learning. You just said it was 7 years in advance, so I could be well talking 10 years in advance here. But there's another future, which is there's a potential for easy comparisons. Financial services is quite difficult because a lot of it needs financial advisors, because there can be a lot of nuances that are really difficult to predict. So let's take broadband prices, for example. And imagine all the broadband companies have plugins straight to AI. So now you go, who's the best broadband provider in this postcode? And it does a call to Virgin, PlusNet, Sky, whoever, it just returns all the prices. And so now as a consumer, my personal assistant, I think this is the funny thing about AI. We're all focusing on what it's going to do for companies, but I think it's going to might be what it does for consumers that actually has the greatest impact on companies. So really, what does that mean as a lead generator if you're using it as a sort of comparison source? So number one is you want to be building yourself as a destination, almost certainly. If your aim is in the future to carry on being a lead generator under an AI future, AI more led advertising future. But the second thing is, if you're trying to move away from comparison and stuff like that, so you're either going to have to do comparisons where it's not, the price isn't immediately obvious because there needs to be a much longer consultation behind it. So most financial services are like that, right? Because they require consultations. It's not like, I don't know, if you were getting a mortgage, it's quite difficult to predict what your mortgage is going to be. There's a lot of questions that might be asked, which potentially could be caught by AI. But what it suggests is that I don't know what that suggests. It's quite difficult. This is what I mean. It's quite, when I say I've been thinking about it a lot, it's because it's quite difficult to extrapolate beyond that. This thing of like AI taking over a lot of this comparison stuff. I mean, what do you think? So I've just told you what could happen. What do you think how would you protect yourself against that as a comparison site or a lead generator operating in those spaces?
I think one thing you mentioned earlier is worth considering, and I'm not really coming from that angle, but is if stuff like Chat GPT retains its objectivity or not. So right now, let's imagine a scenario where someone says, give me the best life insurance or whatever they're searching for. And right now, as far as I understand how it works, it will trawl through that stuff and it will use the fact, it might ask you questions about what factors you need, but it will come back with an answer that to the artificial intelligence is the best answer. But in theory, that could be either like doctored by the brands who put that information out there because they're sort of searching for that, or worst case, it could essentially be like falsified by companies bidding to be. I don't know, I don't know anything about this, but it's almost a bit like at the moment it's almost like anti-ping post in a sense. It's deliberately giving you the best answer, not the highest bidder. And it'll be nice if it stays like that. I don't know if it will stay like that, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm almost certain it would change it so that it gave, and that's what I mean. I think it's more consumer side that the biggest change is going to be than company side. I think short term will be company side, but as AI gets more ubiquitous and attached to the internet, and people are wandering around on their phones going like, book me a holiday to New York or whatever, and it just comes back with like cheapest hotel or whatever it is they want, best hotel, cheapest flight or whatever, and they're not having to do a search. But what you're entirely right about is these are still commercial entities, right? Whether like it or not. So if they think, and the AI might work this out for them, if they think that allowing comparison sites to carry on is going to make them more money than not, it's a great future for probably lead generators and comparison sites, providing they can turn themselves into a brand. If not, and it thinks it can make more money not doing that, that's when it's time to be worried. So you're entirely right. It will always, either way, it gets the best outcome for the consumer, because if you're not working consumer side, I'd suggest it's going to be really difficult to operate under AI because it'll it by its nature, whoever's operating it is trying to give it the best answer. But I could see a scenario where it makes more money by keeping middlemen there and comparison size lead generators. And so then you either still want to be a destination, or you want to be seen as like adding value to consumers, because that's how the AI will then respond with you as an option, or your ad costs go down.
This is, I think, the interesting point when you say that. You're assuming there that the AI is going to factor in what's best for the company, so give it an answer that generates the most revenue for the company. But in theory, it shouldn't be able to do that. It should only give you the answer that's best for the consumer.
This is the interesting thing. It gives the answer to whoever's operating it the best answer, right? But the thing is, from a consumer point of view, unless it's trained in an evil way, which is, look at all the noise that's coming around it, and I don't think they'd ever let that happen. Effectively, every consumer, and what's funny is we're all consumers, is just in their pocket going to be able to make sure they always get the best deal. And this is why I've been saying it for a long time about lead gen companies becoming brands. I think they need to become the destination for a search. They need to use their impartiality as a strength, and they need to be seen by the consumer, and hopefully therefore the AI, as a viable option for the consumer getting the best deal. Because if they're not, they won't get returned as a response. Now, the next thing is still, what about the buyers of leads in the future? The companies, lead buyers. So this is one thing. They've got direct plugins to large companies I'm talking about, into potential like chat GPT, but they'll all have it. So they'll just be like a bit like searches now, but it would just be like these companies do it, and then the plugins might be price driven. Again, it'll probably help the consumer. It'll all be driven by the lowest prices or best price, or best offer, whatever it is. But what's interesting, because it's AI, they'll be able to run their own things internally of what their responses should be based on all the information it knows. What price should we return for this? What should we do with this lead? What is the best way to factor with this? A bit like what you said with landing pages, building everything to its optimal capabilities that be tailored and personalized to every single user. Just as a caveat, I have no idea when all of this will happen, but it all seems to make sense. I think the chatbot stuff, you can do it now. You can go and train a chatbot AI as a lead generator or a lead buyer and bang it on your site or your landing page. That's immediately available. You can figure out now, immediately available. We can do it. Other companies do it. Of how likely a lead is to convert and what the next best action to place with them is. But it's a fast-moving world. It's actually like just interesting. I'm really interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, even just very simple ideas: optimize your messaging, optimize your strategy, get a strategy to do better. Say to it, tell me exactly what I need to do to improve my generation of these things. All this kind of stuff. It can just very interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to cover there? Have we sort of done it? We kind of rambled on for quite a while there.
Yeah, I think we've done it all.
Don't know if we gave a concrete answer. It was more just a philosophical wandering. I think we.
What would be interesting is if anyone else has got any ideas that's listening to this, they get in contact with us. But maybe put it on like a LinkedIn post or something, on the company one. Just reply to it.
Post this tomorrow.
I'd love to know what other people think. Like,
what we could do with this as well is like a machine learning or AI expert to sort of look at it from their perspective too, because I'm sort of presupposing a lot of things, but it's based on very little working knowledge of how these things work. Just I think myself.
If you get like a true academic talking about it, they won't want to give any concrete answers, and they go, anything could happen. So it might actually backfire quite badly.
It's really boring.
Yeah.
Will this work? No. Can this happen? No. We'll see. All right. That was episode 101. How will AI impact lead generation? Thanks for listening to the B2C Lead Generation podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe to hear more from those at the very cutting edge of the lead gen world.